The HOA didn't know she was a lawyer. Then she exposed their corruption. The perfect neighborhood. Nestled in the heart of a quiet suburb, Maple Ridge Estates was the kind of neighborhood people dreamed of. Perfectly cut lawns, kids riding bikes, and mailboxes lined up like soldiers on parade. It was the kind of place where people waved at each other in the mornings and barbecues were held on warm summer evenings. Julia Thompson was excited when she moved in. After years of hard work, she'd finally bought her first home. A cozy two-story cottage with blue shutters and a wraparound porch, exactly how she'd imagined her future. A place to settle down, grow a garden, and take a breath. But beneath the picturesque surface of Maple Ridge, something was very, very wrong. And what the Homeowners Association, the HOA, didn't know was that Julia wasn't just any new neighbor. She was a lawyer. A former federal prosecutor. And when she smelled corruption, she didn't back down. A warm welcome turns cold. Julia moved in on a sunny Saturday. Neighbors greeted her with polite smiles and firm handshakes. She unpacked her boxes, planted her favorite marigolds in the front garden, and settled into what she hoped would be a peaceful life. But just 1 week after moving in, she got her first notice from the HOA. It was a violation. Her mailbox was not compliant with community standards. Confused, she reread the HOA bylaws. Nowhere did it specify a certain type of mailbox, but she replaced it anyway, just to avoid problems. A few days later, another notice came. This time, it was about her shutters. Incorrect shade of blue. Then another. Her flower bed was non-conforming. Apparently, marigolds didn't fit the community's aesthetic harmony. Then came the fines. $50. Then $75. Then $125. Within a month, Julia owed over $300 in violation fees. Something wasn't right. Patterns in the chaos. Julia didn't panic. She did what lawyers do best, research. She combed through the HOA's governing documents, the bylaws, meeting minutes, financial statements, anything she could legally request or access. What she found raised her eyebrows. The rules were vague. The enforcement? Arbitrary. Even more troubling, the HOA board, particularly its president, Craig Halberd, seemed to have near total control over everything. He approved vendors. He imposed fines. He even decided who could speak at meetings. Then Julia started talking to her neighbors. And that's when the real story started to unfold. The victims speak out. It started casually. A wave and a conversation with the elderly man next door. "You too, huh?" he said when Julia mentioned the violations. "They fined me for having too many potted plants on my porch." Then another neighbor. A single mother who was threatened with foreclosure over a $600 fine for leaving her trash bin out overnight. An older couple told her they'd been bullied into paying a special assessment for landscaping upgrades, work that was never actually done. Julia took notes. She built a timeline. And the pattern became clear. This wasn't about maintaining a beautiful neighborhood. It was about control. And money. Following the money. Julia shifted her focus to the HOA's financial records. Though limited, she accessed what she could through the Florida Homeowners Association laws, which require financial transparency. She noticed the HOA paid one landscaping company over $60,000 in just 1 year. But that landscaping company had no website. No public phone number. No physical address. After some digging, Julia found it was registered under a holding company, owned by Craig Halberd's cousin. There it was. A clear case of self-dealing. She checked the budget again. Overpriced services. Inflated invoices. Random administrative costs with no breakdown. She kept digging. Preparing for battle. Over the next few weeks, Julia built her case like it was going to court. She documented every violation. Every inconsistent ruling. She gathered affidavits from over a dozen neighbors who had been fined, intimidated, or misled by the board. She printed the HOA's financials. Highlighted discrepancies. Cross-referenced vendors. She even traced payments to a personal bank account belonging to the treasurer's husband. She compiled a 43-page dossier. Then, she waited for the next HOA meeting. The night of the meeting. The community center was packed. Residents shuffled in, some tired, others angry. Julia stood quietly in the back, dossier in hand. Craig Halberd opened the meeting with his usual smug air. "Let's keep this short and civil, folks. No complaints tonight." Julia raised her hand. Craig frowned. "Members must submit requests to speak in writing." Julia stepped forward. "I did. And under Florida Statute 720.303, every homeowner has the right to address this board regarding financial transparency." Craig smirked. "And who are you to lecture us on the law?" She took a breath and said, "Julia Thompson, attorney at law. And you, Mr. Halberd, are in violation of multiple state statutes and possibly federal wire fraud laws." The room fell silent. The bomb drops. Julia didn't yell. She didn't rant. She presented. Calmly. Precisely. She showed residents how HOA funds were being funneled to companies owned by board members' relatives. She displayed inflated invoices, proof of embezzlement. She handed out copies of the dossier to everyone in the room. "This isn't just mismanagement," she said. "It's corruption." Craig tried to object. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Actually, I do," Julia said. "And so will the state attorney general. I've already submitted this packet to their office." A gasp rippled through the room. Retaliation and resistance. In the days that followed, Julia became a target. She received anonymous threats. A citation appeared for a broken fence, despite her fence being brand new. Someone vandalized her marigolds. But she didn't stop. She filed a formal complaint with the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. She contacted a local journalist. A news crew came out to do a story. And then the real flood began. Whistleblowers from within the HOA came forward. A former secretary admitted that minutes had been doctored. Emails leaked, revealing internal discussions about how to silence troublesome residents. The house of cards falls. 2 weeks later, state investigators launched an audit of the HOA. They confirmed everything Julia had found, and more. Illegal contracts. Misappropriation of funds. Intimidation campaigns. Craig Halberd and 2 board members were arrested. One was charged with felony fraud. Another accepted a plea deal and provided key testimony. The entire board was forced to resign. For the first time in years, Maple Ridge was free. Rebuilding the community. A special election was held to form a new board. Julia declined to run. She said, "I'm not here to run the neighborhood. Just to help fix it." Instead, she helped draft new bylaws. She created a resident committee for oversight. She offered free legal workshops so others would never feel helpless against authority again. Her neighbors, once isolated by fear, started to come together. Cookouts returned. Kids played outside again. People smiled without suspicion. The marigolds bloomed brighter than ever. Justice, peace, and marigolds. Julia sat on her porch, sipping iced tea, watching the sun set over her now peaceful street. She hadn't come to Maple Ridge to fight. But when the fight came to her doorstep, she met it head-on. Not with anger. Not with revenge. But with knowledge. With truth. With courage. Because corruption thrives in silence. And she refused to be silent. One lawyer. One neighborhood. One unforgettable stand against corruption. If you enjoyed this story of justice and resilience, like, share, and subscribe for more real stories that inspire.